Well, welcome everybody to Forever Bristol City podcast. It's a good Saturday morning because we're reflecting on yesterday's game at Ashton Gate, where it finished City 2, Sunderland 1. We are well and truly in the playoffs. Shame Borough got that last minute winner, courtesy of Tommy Conway's dive. But we're there on merit. I'm delighted today to be joined by Graham from What the Folk Sunderland podcast, and he's going to give a Sunderland view on things. And I have a sneaky feeling we'll be talking again between now and the end of May. Also delighted to have, first time in a long time, but has been on several times before, Paul Binning, otherwise known as the exiled Robin to all City fans, and then Dave Tovey over in Spain. And joining me here in our office here in Clevedon is Neil Sutton and myself, Dave Potier. Without any further ado, let's bring Graham in first of all. Graham, as you watched the game and the final whistle blew, sum up in half a minute or so what your thoughts were.
I don't speak for every Sunderland fan, but in a really weird way, it feels like pre-season because we're just fourth. Like nothing can happen. We can't not be fourth. We can't be fourth. I don't even think we could look at the game and say, all right, that's what we're going to get from Bristol City because the red card killed it, which I'm sure we'll get into. Like, as a competitive game, that killed it. It was slightly better than we played in recent weeks, but like by the end of the game, we had players on the pitch that I honestly forgot were alive, such as Joe Anderson. Sorry, Joe, I just forgot that you existed. And I think the fact that, you know, we took off Enzo Lafay, Mayenda, like the players that should make a difference in the playoffs kind of showed you our hand a little bit. It's frustrating because you don't want to lose there. Like, no one wants to lose games, and that's 2 defeats in a row and potentially against a playoff, like a playoff opponent that we could get in the semi-finals. But frustrated because you never like getting beat. But I don't know, maybe I'm getting old here, Dave. I don't know. But I'm a bit balanced with it and thought, yeah, that's all right. That's fine. I think if you win on Monday, you move on with it.
All right.
Yeah, nothing can happen. We're fourth. Nothing's going to change. Whether we lost 7-0 or won 7-0.
That's very true. It's very true. Looking at the table, 10 points, you can't even catch them up if Sheffield continue their stumbling. Paul, what were your thoughts? I mean, you know, we're looking the side in form at the moment with a solidity, but as you trudged away from Ashton Gate, probably not one of the hundreds that stayed behind for half an hour as though we'd won the league, but chanting in section 82. What did you think, Paul?
I was very impressed with us yesterday. I think the sending off obviously changed the game. The parallels for us, obviously, with the whole game are there for all to see. And I thought the difference in how we approached the game and how we went at it were stark. And I think, it felt like we'd learned a lot from that whole experience. Even first half when we went in behind, we were probing, we were doing different things, we were trying different things, we were shooting from outside the box, maybe not as much as some would like, but generally I thought it was a strong performance. And yes, it's a shame we probably didn't see, from a neutral's point of view, a full-on 90-minute competitive game. But right now that doesn't matter, does it? We need results, we need a win, and it was obviously a great opportunity for us to take those 3 points.
Okay, Dave, your thoughts?
What you see is a side that isn't learning on the job. It has learned on the job because of what happened with Hull, and you can see the evolution there. I was very, very positive. However, there is one warning sign. We are not keeping clean sheets. Game after game, we keep conceding goals, and too many goals, and at some point that will come back to haunt us, and it's staring us in plain sight. But it's a highly positive feeling overall, because when you watch a game like yesterday, and the energy and the probing that they put in and asking so many different questions, it does leave a hugely positive feeling at the end of the game.
And Neil?
I just reiterate what they've said about the actual the learnings from the whole game yesterday. The one thing that struck me yesterday is that there was a sense of belief and there was a patience in the crowd that perhaps hadn't been there previously, and a sense of belief in the team that actually we could get a result here, regardless of the fact it took that goal in the second half that we'll come to. But what struck me yesterday, I came away from the ground, I thought, I wonder how many shots we've actually had in that game. And I thought 8 or 9?
27.
Well, with the block shots, 21 shots we had. And it was like, blimey, all right. Actually, we were shooting quite a lot. Yeah. We were taking chances. There was a sense of belief to just do it, and you're not going to be criticised. And I think the crowd really got behind the team yesterday.
They did. No, several times the crowd broke out. Let's look at team selection. Again, start with you, Graham. I mean, Sunderland, you said some of the players on the bench, you didn't know they were still alive. Was that look? And what are your thoughts on your manager this season? Because he's come in, he's done a good job at your team lineup. And would we expect to see massive changes if we get you in 3 weeks' time?
Actually, the starting 11 wasn't massively different. You had Job on the bench who came on later on and actually had an absolute stinker by his standards. His mistake for the goal, really not like him, to be honest. But I think it's almost the way the team is playing. The one change that I really hope that we've got a young boy, Tommy Watson, on the left, who I rarely get angry at footballers, especially when they're 19 years old, because look, they're just learning the trade. But he's moving to Brighton in the summer for 10 million. That was announced 3 weeks ago for some bizarre reason. And for a boy who's born in the area, I could have, I won't, but I could have strangled him with the way he performed yesterday. So he definitely shouldn't be in the team. Hopefully we'll have Mundell back by that point, who's been one of our better players this year. But the starting 11 was actually relatively strong at the start, but then Hume gets sent off and then Dan Neil moves into centre-back. Dan Neil's not a centre-back. Luke O'Nien goes to right-back. And then the changes were weirder than anything. Like it went to 1-1 or 2-1 down, and he brought on Alan Brown for my ender. Alan Brown's like a very much a defensive-minded midfielder, whereas you saw what my ender kind of does. He's a centre forward that's there to score goals and kind of hit you on the break. We spoke during the week about, Reggie Slabreeze did, and he spoke during the week, and he kind of, without admitting it, said, I'm just looking towards the playoffs and making sure we get no injuries. We've had some really awful injuries this season. I think at the minute we've got Dennis Serkin's out, Dan Ballard's out, Ramin Mundell's out. 3 players that would arguably get in the team. And we're hoping that they're all going to be fit by the time the playoffs come around. We've had Enzo Lafay out was for 4 or 5 weeks, I think. So kind of easing him back in. He got took off about the hour mark, I think. So we're trying to make sure players don't get injured, I think. And that's why you've seen a lot more rotation with the subs. But the actual starting 11, I think if it had stayed at 11 and we hadn't had to change things, would have been not a million miles away, but you're probably going to get, like, Yelder at left back's not going to play in the playoffs unless something's wrong with Dennis Serkin, who's, look, he's in England, a 21 international. He would have been, but he got injured, unfortunately, beforehand. He would probably come in. But the team itself, the one that started before the red card happened, is not a million miles away. You'll probably see 3 or 4 that come back in.
Okay.
But it's the subs, to be honest with you, Dave. Like, the subs that are coming on, the players are not. Some of those players aren't going to get anywhere near.
Your subs, that's interesting, because we always think Sunderland are a bigger club than Bristol City, which from fans and a history perspective, they clearly are. Paul, all the talk in the week was about Max O'Leary, and we knew Sykes had been ruled out through injury. Max did his ankle last week. Were you surprised? Neil pointed out to me that he didn't even take part in the warm-up, which was worrying by itself. But what did you think of our lineup, and were you pleased to see us take a chance on Max?
Yes, I think he has some doubters. He still has some doubters, but he's undoubtedly our number 1 keeper by some distance. So pleased to see him in there. I was listening to, I think it was Chris Wheel on BBC Radio Bristol before the game, and he was saying how, as a goalkeeper, you can get away with not training for a week, and obviously you're not in the same levels of fitness required. As long as you have a little bit of a session and you can do a bit of catching and a bit of ball work the day before, then you should be all right. And I guess that showed a little bit. Hopefully he is now fit, and that's fine. In terms of the lineup, the back 5 was how I posted in the week. I probably wanted to see it as soon as Sykes was out. I felt Yu was exposed in the last game at QPR. Hayden Roberts has struggled and probably not first choice at the moment. So the back 5, as we had it set up, were exactly how I had gone for it. And again, we probably didn't really see how good or effective it was because the game was a non-game after 7 minutes. So we haven't really tested it out properly. But no, it was exactly as I expected. I'm pleased to see Pring back at wing back. I think he offers a huge amount of wing back. And we saw a lot of that yesterday too.
Yeah. Dave, if you look at our lineup, I'm surprised the Nigel Pearson fanboys aren't saying, that's Nigel Pearson's side. And bar 2 players, Earthy and Bird, and you could argue that Bird, who was signed in the January window of last year, he would have been on the radar. Maybe Pearson was involved in Bird signing, but maybe not. But 9 out of the 11 there. When the board brought Manning in, it was that we've got the squad. They just need to be better coached. So arguably, that is the case. But, what do you think of the lineup and your thoughts on Max playing in pain, I guess? He looked a bit gingerly walking when he went for a few things.
I think when you look at it, we've got essentially in terms of the best 2 lineups possible at the moment, you're either having you on the right or you're having Weiner as the left centre back. Of those 2 options, I would rather have Weiner as the left centre back. But what's happening quite often at the moment is we have to pay a price somewhere because of the injuries. And basically, as you've alluded to, because some of the recruitment wasn't great, there are certain prices to be paid, and we're getting by because we do have a general squad of good players. And in a way, like what you're seeing with the 3 at the back, and if you look at even at Christmas, look at the number 10s. Right now we have Bird and Earthy. It is an evolution. You can argue that Twine and Mehmeti are a clear 3 and 4 at the moment in who you want in the side. And I would say that it has taken a journey to get to this point, but the style of football that they've been playing in the last, 2 months is the kind of football that we all wanted to see in the first place. Did we need to go through what we went through in the first place to get here? I'm not sure, but I'm glad that we are where we are because it is enjoyable football. And yesterday you got the benefits of it against 10 men, because against Hull it was slow, repetitive, the same questions. Yesterday it was like, I felt like we're going to break these down, and in the second half, which we'll come to, that's what you saw. But I think it was the right lineup yesterday.
Neil, the summer transfer and injuries. If you think about it, the 2 strikers, Sinclair and Mayulu. Well, one's injured. Sorry, one's injured on loan away. One didn't get any minutes at all yesterday. Yeah, Twine, the highly expensive signing, not a natural starter, it would seem at the moment. McNally injured, it's quite a depleted squad. But then when you look at the bench, I mean, Graham was saying there's players on their bench that he's never heard of, but I think our bench still looks strong, despite me naming players that are out at the moment.
Yes, I don't like Weiner at left centre back, and that you can see that in the Sunderland goal that we'll get to. Went up to Millwall away when he played left centre back. He's awful on his left-hand side. I mean, his positional work is not great either. When he played with you at right centre back at QPR, when I went to QPR last week, you could tell the 2 of them didn't communicate with one another, and that led to a 5'6" winger coming straight through the middle and beating both of them in the air. So Weiner is a weak link, I would argue, in that back 3. But McNally, if McNally was fit, would Weiner even be in that back 3? I don't think he would.
You don't? That's
I think McNally. I think McNally would
based on his performances.
McNally would be the right centre back, because McNally is a right centre back who's been playing on the left. And if we had Atkinson, my back 3, if there was, would be Atkinson left centre back, Dickie in the middle, and McNally on the right centre.
So McNally's right. I thought he was left.
No, McNally's right. McNally's right. Yeah, he's been playing on the left, and he's a right centre back. Look at him when he played for Coventry in the playoff final. He's a right centre back.
What was interesting about yesterday, though, was really you had 3 questions. Would you rather have Roberts as the weak link as the left wing back? Would you rather have Weiner, or would you rather have you? And in my opinion, we picked the least of the weak links of those 3 options, because you just isn't a right wing back when you're playing 11-11. It's the same on the other side. So Weiner is the worst choice, if that makes sense, in terms of what you have to go with.
Dave, we've had the smallest squad in a division. We've used the fewest amount of players in a division, and what we've had is, West Brom away in December when we lost 2-0 and we were nowhere, and nobody saw this. No. I dispute that anybody on the forums or on social media would say that we're going to be in the playoffs.
Well, we were worried about the run-in because we looked at what we had to face. Let's get into the action, because I'm conscious we got a full house today. I'll come to you first, Paul, for the pen. Then I'll go to Graham, and then Dave and Neil. 7 minutes in, we were told that Oliver Langford, the referee, not one of our favourites, and neither was the fourth official, Andy Davis. But, you know, he was out with that red card in a flash. I've seen it a couple of times now today. I mean, if you look at the Conway situation at Borough and Plymouth yesterday, then clearly, if he can get away with that, it was a definite sending off. But you've probably seen it a couple of times. What did you think?
It was a red card. If the referee's giving a foul, it's a red card. He was clear. He was going to be on shooting on goal, and that's the law. Denial of a goal scoring opportunity. I mean, where we sit, David. I was standing up, appealing for it because it just looked like it should be a red. I think the first thought was, will he have the guts to do it in the 6th minute because it's early? Yeah, I think when you look at the replays, it looks a bit soft, but I think his heels were clipped. It was a light touch. But his heels were clipped, and as soon as it's a foul, it's a red card for me. And I think if that was against us the other way, we'd have all been grudgingly admitting that, or probably moaning, but grudgingly admitting it. But if you actually look at the player's reaction, his first reaction was just to sort of look at the skies and didn't even. He knew he was going to get sent off.
Yeah. So dead sir. Graham, you might have a different view. Sky thought it was a little bit harsh. Yeah. But
I've already been getting abuse in the comments already. What an arrogant individual already after a minute. Jesus
I saw
Christ.
that. I couldn't believe that. That's wrong. Don't be so rude to our bloody guests.
Because I said we were
I've only met you a couple of times, Graham, and you're arrogant. You're the least arrogant person that I know based on my contact with you. Just shows what morons we get on the podcast listening to us sometimes. But there you go. What did you think of the pen?
For me, no. I think where it's come from, to be completely honest with you, as I think that your centre forward's been that experienced 35-year-old centre forward and made sure that he's got a touch. For me, the biggest disappointment was I think it would have been a good game. I think largely, and I know there's a few fans saying, Sunderland fans are saying would have smashed you 11. I don't know. It didn't happen. I don't know, and I thought you played quite well at the Stadium Light. So I'm not going to stand here and go, yeah, we would have absolutely destroyed you with 11 men. I thought it would have been a better game. And that was kind of disappointing because I've got the whole weekend off for Easter and I'm sitting down. I'm like, right, here we go. This will be a decent game. Bristol City in form. We need a win here. Like, all right, 5 minutes in. Brilliant. Fantastic. Absolutely awesome. Love that. The lad who got sent off is going to get rested on Monday anyway. So I don't even think we'll appeal it. So we'll never really find out if like the PJ Mall or whatever it was are going to rescind it or not. But ultimately, not for me. But I'm aware that on both sides of the argument, I think from me and obviously from your fans, there's going to be a bit of bias, and of course there is. If it's the other way around, am I calling for it? Probably, because you call for everything, don't you? But I think I don't think, in my personal opinion, it's a goal scoring opportunity. There's so much to do from him after that point, and I think the element of him being touched is mainly like I think Naki Wells has been smart, really smart. And he should be. Like, he celebrates after he gets a red card. There's a reason for that. Because he knows what he's done and it's worked. And if you watch the ref, it's kind of frustrating. He does give the red quite quick, but for like a split second, he's like, oh God, what do I do? And your players, rightly so, which is modern day football, unfortunately, ref, hang on a minute. And I think ultimately he celebrates it because he knows that gives you a massive chance to win. Of course it does. Not for me, but like, am I pleased in a way that it meant we got to see what we would be like if we went down to 10 men early in the game and competed relatively well? I think we deserved to lose, but I thought we weren't horrendous. Yeah, it's probably quite a good thing in some ways.
Okay. All right. I just got to say, I apologise to Don because he did say, welcome, Graham. He was referring to the Sunderland number 4 as arrogant.
I'm so sorry.
Mr. Potier. I made an error, and your comments are always welcome, Don. So my apologies. My apologies on that one. But there we go. Dave, 4 minutes. If that's the playoff final at Wembley, he probably doesn't give that, does he? But it's...
Well, no, maybe not. But what you see behind it is extremely intelligent forward play, but also the difference in the types of questions that you ask. If you go back to earlier on the season, O'Leary gets the ball, we reset with the centre-backs and we look to build our way up. You have to do it in multiple ways. Ultimately, the red card happens because Wells manages to essentially to turn his defender who's trying to win it and misjudges it. And once you're in, you've asked a question, If the referee hadn't given a red there, I wouldn't necessarily be complaining. I think it's one of those borderline as the referee sees it. He sees it as a red, so it's a red. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Because I think I looked around afterwards. It's like there isn't really a Sunderland player that's going to stop him getting a shot. You know, he is denied a goal scoring opportunity. So personally, I think it is a red. But I wouldn't have been shouting, saying that's a definite red card if he hadn't given it. And if there is VAR, for example, I'm not necessarily sure it would even overturn it.
That's interesting you say about it. Did you think?
No, I don't like it, but that's another story.
Do you think, Neil, it would have gone to VAR if that had been a Prem game?
Well, from where I am on E32, I was basically in line with it. And what Naki does, he's got the street smarts of everything of a 34-year-old striker, nearly 35, who's been around. He turned to be... Naki does not accelerate away anymore. He cannot accelerate away. So he knows the guy's behind him. And he almost slows down and buys the touch, knowing that the guy is behind him. And as Graham says, the way he celebrated when that red, he knew in his mind, right, I'm away, I'm in this position. If I'm not going to get a shot in, this guy's going to have to take me. It's going to be one or the other. Either I'm going forward and taking a shot, in which case I've still got a lot to do, or the guy's going to have to take me out. And he plays it well. Naki plays it well. And he buys the foul, but he does it in such a way that he's got the ref's got to make a decision on it. And he's last man. So for me, it's a definite red.
I was sitting there. I was telling my son, that's when you go clear a defender, that's what to do. Get across him. And I was literally telling him that's what you do. And you earn it by doing by that movement, by that play.
It's really smart. But like I know there's a few people saying it was a clear goal scoring opportunity. If he did score from that angle, fair play. I still think he might have been last man. I agree with that. But he's got a hell of a lot to do. And he knows that. And that's why
he's got free in those positions a number of times this season, and he hasn't got the legs he had five years ago. He wouldn't have accelerated from there. Your guys probably would have caught him up, even on the cover. He's not that sort of player anymore.
I just think it's really smart forward playing in a way, like you say, he's made the referee make a decision. And hey, look, this is EFL Championship refereeing, isn't it? Like, just put your hand in a bag and you can make a decision from that. They're absolutely, I'm not going to quit it. We talked about the decision for Tommy Conway yesterday. I know it's not a Plymouth or Middlesbrough podcast, but Jesus, that's just where it's at, isn't it? With the EFL Championship referees.
Yeah.
Yes, and let's fingers crossed. And I think if you're a player like Naki Wells, let the referee guess, because he might go red.
He might, and he did, and he wasn't meant to be one of our favourites. I was saying to people around me, I said, right, they're down to 10 men with that. Why don't we bring Twine on, the free kick specialist? You know, I mean, that was Twine territory. Paul, the free kick was in a good position. We didn't do too bad, did we? It ended with Williams shooting wide. But, you know, Twine, we haven't had you on the podcast for a while, yeah? What are your thoughts on Twine? Because he scored some critical goals at the start of this run, December, early Jan. You know, would you have brought him on thinking, well, we don't need the high press like we have had? But your thoughts on the free kick and Twine, since we haven't asked you about him this season?
Yeah, overall, he's done okay. And I think that's quite telling, maybe in its comment. I think he's been all right. He's scored some great goals. He's given us some great moments, undoubtedly. But the transfer fee isn't his fault. The fact that we went after him all summer isn't his fault. But you would kind of expect him to be our marquee signing, and you'd sort of expect him to be in the running for Player of the Year in the top 2 or 3 nominations. And he's not there for me. He's not in that conversation, and he's. What we've seen, I think, more importantly, in the last 7 to 8 weeks, I can't remember which chap said it earlier, the evolution of that number 10 position. But what we're doing now with Bird and Murphy there isn't what Twine does in the same way. They're pressing high, they're being a nuisance, they're making little cute, creative runs. And we've been a better team in the last 2 months since those two are playing there. And I think that's for me more important. Rather than talking about him per se, it's more about what the team's doing and how it's done. Saying that, yes, I probably would have brought him on a bit earlier yesterday, because I think we didn't need 3 defenders, including George Tanner, who's less good offensively. We probably didn't need Knight and Williams, although Williams had an excellent game. We probably didn't need both of them holding back. I do wonder if a goal kind of just gave Liam Manning a second thought on that and thought, actually, we don't want to get caught on a break again. Let's keep it solid as we can. But yes, what Twine offers you is that excellence from range in terms of shooting. And I think that could have been useful yesterday when the ball dropping out of the area to that 20-25 yard mark, and someone who can actually get a good shot in.
Yeah, you can see Twine at Wembley in the playoff final against whoever getting that free kick, and he's tailor-made for that situation.
Yeah.
Let's come to the goal. You first, Dave. I've looked at that a couple of times now, and talk about a breakaway goal. I mean, he picked that up in line with the edge of the D. Take us through it as you saw it, and should we have done better? Should somebody have taken one for the team at some point?
Could they, should they, would they is a question. I have to say, as an individual goal, it's one of the favourites that I've ever seen, to be honest. You have to bear in mind, he picks the ball up from his own D. He essentially rides 2 challenges, and after that, no one gets near him. It's not, it's all well and good saying just take him out, but you have to get near him first. And he's got the pace and he's gone round. And essentially, it's come from us not really offering much of a threat in that first period after the red card. It was playing all in front of them. And it wasn't like, where's that come from? There were 3 or 4 opportunities prior where he looked a bit sharpish, where Max had to come out to one and get there, where he was almost in on another one. And it wasn't a shock to see him counter like that. But when he gets it, boy, was he clinical. I think the main issue is what you saw is the Viner weakness of playing on that side. He didn't do enough for me in trying to show him out wide, and allowed himself essentially to be slowed down a bit to cut inside. But it's an exceptional goal. If one of our players had scored that, we wouldn't be saying, oh, one of the Sunderland players should have taken him down. We would have been like, wow, what a high quality, privileged goal to be able to see, because it was that good. You don't just beat 5 men by chance, it's a stunning goal.
Neil, your thoughts? It reminded me of one that Ivan Sproul scored at Leicester.
Oh, God.
Many years ago.
I mean, fantastic goal.
Yeah.
Fantastic goal. But it was almost like junior football. It really was. Sort of watching it, give it to the guy, the fast guy in the team, and he just runs and then runs through your team. I mean, obviously we have our 2 players taking each other out.
Well, there was two.
We
lost it on the edge of their box because we were hovering in their box.
Either it was Knight and Williams or Knight and Dickey, one of the 2
who clattered into each other.
Clattered into each other, but fantastic strength from Maeda, fair play to him. And then he breaks. And then Viner has got a decision. And Viner's just so uncomfortable on that left-hand side that normally you would go in, you cover, as a centre back myself, you stop him coming into the middle of and you try and force him out wide. And he doesn't do it. He's stumbling back. His feet are all underneath him to the extent that when he cuts inside Maeda, suddenly Zach seems to retreat about 3 yards because his feet are all over the place. So suddenly, from being within a yard of him, he cuts inside. And now he's 3 feet off him. Yeah, because he's got his feet all tangled up. Really poor defending. On the other side, I normally quite like Zach as a one-on-one defender. I think he's one of our stronger one-on-one defenders.
But he's playing on his wrong side.
He's playing on his wrong side. His feet are all over the place. But you can't take away from Maeda. Fantastic goal. But Zach, what are you doing? You saw in the second half, they either got tight to him, Dickey got tight to him a few times, or Pring took one for us. Pring took a yellow card by just taking him out and not letting him do that. And that's what Zach should have done, because further up the field, you take him out and you've got guys on cover, you take a yellow.
And you can see when you see it from behind the goal, you got Knight, the dynamo that he is. He's struggling to get back. He's closest to him when he takes a shot. And then you've got a little bit of a presence, but no impact from Tanner, because he's got 3 players around him, and Viner's the furthest one away. Let's talk about a goal from Sunderland's perspective. Graham, cracking goal, and your fans, all 3,500, good effort on a Good Friday. I wonder how many of them spent a weekend in Bristol. But, you're up on cloud 9 when that one goes in.
I'm just dying to hear these names in the Bristol accent. Eliza and Mayender. I just couldn't stop saying it yesterday. I don't know why, and it just tricked in my head. But look, I think when you watch, if you're watching this in a neutral podcast, I think you talk about how the quality of the goal and how good it is. As it is, we're not a neutral podcast. I'm a Sunderland fan. You're all Bristol City fans. Every goal that has ever scored in the history of football, the defender makes a mistake. It just, that's the way it is, because there's something better you could have done to stop that goal. So from a Bristol City perspective, you're looking at that going, how's he beating 5 of our players? From a Sunderland perspective, you're going, because he's absolutely class. And that's the opinion I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with it was absolutely class. But like Eliza's 19. He's just got in the Spain under-21 squad, which is not easy these days. They're pretty good. So I've been told, not that I watch the Euros or anything like that. But I think that is everything we've seen from Mayenda since about Christmas time. Look, he missed 2 absolute sitters. A really similar run, clean. He didn't go past players, but he's clean through and goal against Blackburn on Boxing Day, and he's totally messed it up. And then he has headed like a free header wide against Stoke a few days later, and you're going, oh God, like, maybe this has not been great. And we signed him last season, and look, he barely got a look in last season. He went on loan to Hibs. He didn't play at Hibs, played 2 games, I think. And you think, oh God, waste of money here, potentially. Signed him as a 17-year-old. And then we played against Sheffield United, and he absolutely tortured them. Like his pace, his power, his strength, and it just gave him confidence. I just think he feels himself now. And I think the way he went past players, I think to be fair to Bristol City defenders, I don't think you could have stopped him. I think the only way you do it is by pulling his shirt or something like that, because second half, I think he did it twice again. And from a team that has 10 players, I'm saying just get it Mayenda. I don't know who the left-sided centre-half is. You would just sort of mention it, but he was terrified of him. You could see him backpedaling. His legs were kind of like tangling in himself. And I feel like for us, with 10 men on the pitch and you want that out ball, aren't you? I'm saying give it to Mayenda, because they look terrified of him. You genuinely looked worried when he got the ball, because his pace and his power and his strength is kind of wonderful in its naivety, because he just runs forward. And I really like that. Like, you remember Wayne Rooney when he was 16, 17, and you were like, you're not stopping him because he's going to play football the way you play it in a junior school team, so to speak.
And you say he's Spanish. He's a Spanish lad, yeah, Spanish under 19.
Spanish.
Yeah. I mean, Paul, when you look at him, that pace that he's got there, and you look at Armstrong, that's what we want. And Armstrong's got the physicality as well, and he's sort of got that pace. But the thing is, Mayenda looks a footballer with close control and everything like that. And that's the difference between him and Armstrong, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, I thought he was excellent yesterday. I think does he play more right side, Graham? I think when Isidore's playing, is that what he's been doing?
He's actually centre forward straight to the middle, but because Wilson up until recently has been really good to get Mayenda in, he's gone on the wings because he can run from deep, as you may have seen yesterday. But he's more of a central striker. That's where I prefer him. But he can do that or play up front in the two. But he's quite what's the word, varied.
I think I think what we saw yesterday, though, I saw when Antoine Semenyo scored on Monday night against Fulham, they had Thierry Henry and Jamie Carragher in the studio afterwards talking about the position the Fulham defender got himself in, which allowed Semenyo to go inside and score. And it was almost exactly that from further out. But yeah, Viner's showing he let him go inside, and you've got to show him outside, even if he's right-footed, because then you just narrow the angle. Then you give the goalkeeper more a chance. It's a harder shot, and that's again maybe it's Viner's positioning at centre back. I don't know, but yes, I don't want to pick on Sinclair Armstrong, but yes, that's what we aspire to, what we hoped we were getting. I think in the summer in terms of a striker. I think we knew Armstrong wasn't that in terms of quality right now, but absolutely what he should aspire to. And I don't think Armstrong is Antoine Semenyo, but we all do remember how raw Semenyo was when he first came into the team, and he would have sort of had potential to score that goal yesterday, but wouldn't have done it. He'd have probably fallen under his feet or blasted it over the bar or done something, because that's how he was when he first came into the team. So there is still hopefully a chance. But yeah, I'm looking yesterday. I mean, you look at him and you go, yeah, I'd be looking to sign him if we went up and we were able to pick up certain players.
Well, we're going to have all those thoughts.
Do you know? Sorry, Dave. Just to say one more thing. The goal itself actually reminded me of a Scott Murray goal against Oldham around probably about 20 years ago, in picking the ball up from your own box and running. And I really I really feel sometimes you just have to tip your cap and say fantastic goal, because we had players diving in trying to pick it up, and he got a bit of the rebound. And yes, as a defender, you can do better, but ultimately the attacker knows what they're going to do, and sometimes even they don't know what they're going to do. And you will get beat by attackers every now and again. And I genuinely think it was a high quality goal. Yes, you can do better, but as Graham said, defenders make mistakes sometimes.
Yeah. Let's get into the second half. Before we do that, Dave, Max O'Leary, I mean, there were no nervous moments in terms of that ankle, really. And he kept us in the game, I thought, when Roberts, it was Mayenda's run setting up, he got past Dickey, setting up Roberts. And that was a smart save when he went to his right, palmed the ball away, because we've seen Max do those saves where he palms it into the opposition, but he pushed it well aside. He didn't look out of sorts at all, really. I didn't think. He wouldn't have thought he was a liability. Dave.
He was asked to do two things. He was asked to do two things yesterday, essentially. That save, and as you said, he pushed it wide, but at pace, because one of their attackers was lurking, and if he doesn't get a good hand to that, maybe there's trouble there. That was number one. And the second one is when he comes out to Mayenda, and it's one of those where if he doesn't get there, he's judged on that as another error. And that's ultimately the little things that you are judged on as a keeper. Do you get the small things right? Because you don't have that much to do. And for Max yesterday, he was 2 for 2, as he has been in most games recently, bar the odd error here and there.
I went in at half-time. Well, I went in and sat down at half-time. And I thought, 1-0 down, but I didn't feel worried because we've come back. Let's get into that second half. Neil,
can I just say something about Max?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Max, you could tell he wasn't fit yesterday. You could tell by looking at the players at the back, the defenders, when they would normally be passing back to him or they'd normally be heading to him. They weren't. They were making other decisions. And I think during the course of the whole game, he kicked the ball long about twice. If I was Luton watching that, I would be putting every single high ball in at them. Every corner on Monday night, you'd be testing that keeper, because you're looking at that as a Luton analyst thinking that keeper is not fit. He's not going to be able to jump. He's not going to be able to command his box. So I fully expect on Monday now they are going to put the ball in and around him. Yeah.
We'll see. But sticking with you, let's go second half.
Yeah.
The goal, it was a weak clearance. Graham will tell us by who, but Dickey, I mean, he's done that a couple of times. We saw him do it for QPR when he was a player with them. I mean, cracking goal, wasn't it? In a different way, almost as good as Mayenda's goal.
Well, he'd had a couple of shots beforehand in relation to it, and Dickey's always had that. I remember a few years ago, Viner shot, and I think it was against Blackburn, and the keeper fumbled it, and Semenyo tapped it in. And you're always like, if the team is so deep, it affords us the opportunities on the edge of the box to actually shoot. So why not shoot? And the centre backs going forward, it was a fantastic strike. It was a fantastic.
He curled it in. He stroked it, didn't he?
For a centre back, and quite frankly, it came at just the right time, because it was 55 minutes, and it was just getting to that stage where we're like looking at the bench, and it's coming up. It's Manning time. It's sub time at 6.
He'd already bought you on for Tanner.
Yeah, but the 60-minute sort of thing, and then the changes, and then it might take us a few minutes to change. So it came at just the right time in relation to the game as well. Fair play. And more importantly, fair play to his reaction, because it wasn't like I'm going around celebrating all the rest of it. Everybody on that pitch went, okay, 1-1. We need to go on. We need to get on with it and win this game. 1-1 wasn't enough for us. Let's get on. Let's win the game. Get the ball straight back. Reset.
And it's interesting you say 1-1, because you think, well, yesterday a draw, it wouldn't have been ideal. But I when you come from a goal behind,
I thought a win was essential, because I think Luton is a really difficult game and Leeds is Leeds.
Yeah.
So I think a win yesterday was
it took the pressure off the upcoming two games. Graham, how did you view the goal from Sunderland's perspective? Who was it who did that limp clearance? You know, it was side-footed out to him, wasn't it?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Enzo. I think it was actually Enzo, the god that he is, that done that, unfortunately. But I suppose it's not really his position to be defending on the edge of the box, which is probably why we didn't really see what we want to see from him yesterday. But look, you cannot deny the strike. Like, what a goal. Like, it's just annoying it was a centre-half, but at the same time, it was not surprising that it was a centre-half, because centre-halves do that, don't they? Like, centre-halves sometimes just go, you know what? Like Vincent Kompany versus Leicester, I'm just going to welly it from 25 yards out. There's nothing you can do about it. I felt like up until that point, our structure was quite good. I felt like you could see you were coming at us, and you could see it's twice that you've done that against us in different circumstances, came out second half and just looked a little bit different for whatever reason it may be. Like, I think at the Stadium Light, he sort of changed the formation, changed things around a little bit, which is good for yous, because that indicates that Manning can change things when he needs to change it and things are going against them. It wasn't the number 4, it was the number 28. Unfortunately, number 4 will be Daniel, just to answer the question on the side. But I think, look, ultimately, I felt a structure was good, but you're always susceptible to, like, when you're sitting deep, a belter of a goal, and at the end of the day, it goes in the top corner, and then your hole ends up, and you need.
There's only going to be one winner after that, unless you get another breakaway.
I'll
pick up on Ray Romano 114's comment that's just slipped off the live feed. And he said box 1, which I'm assuming is me and Neil in box 1 on the screen. He said we look like a Proclaimers tribute act. So I would do 500.
Very good. It's very fun.
That's my
fair play to. That's very good. Yeah.
That's my dad.
Is that your...
That's my dad.
Paul, I mean, we love goals like that when they go in, don't they? They bring the house down or lift the roof off the ground, yeah. But it's good from Rob, and he's had his critics, Dickie, on occasion, being a bit sort of cumbersome. But when he was running back, the camera zoomed in on him. He looked like he looked fit, didn't he? He didn't look like he was carrying any timber, which arguably you could say he has done at times during the season, just a bit slow.
Yeah, no, I think he is. I think on him in general, I think his form in the last 2-3 months since Minali got injured has been exceptional. He's been a leader at back. And someone said in a week, is Max O'Leary the worst injury we could possibly have? And I said, probably just in terms of what's behind him. But Dickie would be, Dickie and Knight would be the two for me in terms of in front of that. So key to what we do. But he's done it before, hasn't he? He's scored a couple for QPR like that, and we've not really seen it. He had a sighter in the first half, didn't he? One that skimmed just past the post. And that's what I thought. It was a spectacular goal that actually caused us to break the duck yesterday. But I was quite quietly confident. We were doing so many different things. We were crossing it low. We were crossing it high. We were chipping out to the back post for McCrory to attack. We were working it for shots on the edge of the area. I think we had 3 shots from the edge of the area in the first half, which again we just didn't do against Hull to go back to that game. And it just felt like it was coming one way or another. Earthy's movement was brilliant, I thought, first half, just getting into these little angles and little spaces. But those movements eventually cause a defence to come out of position, don't they? They eventually cause you to be a bit ragged because you're trying to chase players all over the pitch. And I think that's what we started to see in the second half, is we just worked that Sunderland defence so hard that they lost a bit of their excellent shape that they'd had in the first half and the first 15 minutes. And it was just, I felt it was just down to our play, our passing, our speed of passing. And all those incidents come from that pressure.
Yeah, Dave Tovey on the goal and what Paul had just said. Well, not so much on the goal, but just the build-up leading to the goal. It reminded me a bit like West Brom in the closing stages of that game, where we're trying different things. We're playing possession football. We're not just hitting hopeful crosses in. There seems to be a methodology there, and we are moving the ball quicker. Did you notice that?
I felt there was a real sea change from the first half to the second half. In the first half, after the red card, it felt a bit too similar to Hull. There were a few pot shots, but it was a bit too slow, a bit too ponderous. And it was, what lessons have we learned? Have we learned yet? Second half, and full credit to Manning, the substitution. At half time, personally, I would have done it earlier, because if defensive teams can shake things up, why can't attacking teams? But by doing it at half time, basically essentially saying to you, you're going to stay out wide. That's one question. You're going to put balls into the box. That's another question. You're going to shoot from the edge of the box. That's another question. And from a footballing perspective, most of us like to play football at some point in our lives. Yesterday, I saw 2 goals that I could never dream of scoring. One running the length of the pitch, and another one a side foot from 25 yards. It was an incredible goal to see, and both of them were high quality goals. But obviously, I enjoyed that one a lot more, shall we say?
After that goal, I mean, there was a situation where Bird, had he been, about 2 yards further in from the byline, he would have got a penalty. He didn't appeal for it. When he went down, the ball had already gone out of play. McCrory off the line by Yeld from a corner. There was only going to be one winner. Let's talk about what proved to be the decisive goal on the 76th minute. And it just epitomises what I said about the patient approach play, because it's Knight to Earthy to Wells to Mehmeti, heavy touch by Bellingham, bang. I think somebody said it was like a traction engine, McCrory's foot, Graham, I'm conscious of you on time. Are you okay for?
Yeah, fire one more at me. Why not? Then I'll
Yeah,
go home.
I mean, the goal, it was coming. We were building up that momentum, weren't we?
It felt like it was coming, if I'm completely honest with you. It was like, it's a really weird thing to say. I'm such a competitive person that, I know I've got nothing to do with our team's performances. I don't like losing games, but it was also like, it was coming and I was kind of like, oh, God, could have done with a draw here. That would have been nice, just so I can enjoy my Friday. But when it came, I was like, all right, okay. And obviously I work up in Scotland. Ross got in the Euros team during the summer and we got his first cap and hasn't really been seen since for Scotland because of his injury problems. So I suppose it's nice from that perspective to see that he's came back, because I think, look, I watch quite a lot of them. You'll notice that the Rangers shirt here behind, it's actually Amad Diallo's shirt, by the way. It's not a Rangers thing, but it's cheaper to buy an Amad Diallo signed Rangers shirt than it is Sunderland. There's a random fact for you. But Ross, obviously, I watched an awful lot of when he was up at Rangers, and he was always decent in central midfield. He always did a decent job. In terms of him playing on that sort of, he plays more like right wing back, doesn't he, these days? Yeah. He seems to have a bit more of an offensive threat, which is good. But look, going back to there's always a mistake from a defender. Well, this time it was a midfielder. Arguably my favourite player. I think Job's a phenomenal footballer. He's been out the past few games, gone down to see his brother, I think, to play against Real Madrid, which wouldn't have been a happy night for him. But very unlike Job, and I think ultimately, look, if he clears that like he should, then the goal probably doesn't go in, but I do feel like it was coming. And I've just seen someone say that Dom 1 is Lee Johnson. So I apologise originally for having to go to you, Dom 1, but now I don't apologise because Lee Johnson.
Oh, when I've been on with Graham on the What the Folk Sunderland podcast, we have a lot of chats about Lee Johnson. We could have a Lee Johnson tribute podcast with Graham. Probably people up at Hibs and other clubs like that as well, but we're not going to talk about Lee, who's doing a good job out in the Belgian League 2. He's saved
Belgian League 2.
Belgian League 2. He saved his side
his
from
career
relegation.
is on an upward trajectory. It really is. Yeah. Belgian League 2.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Neil, Ross has come up with some crucial goals. Interesting, Graham said he knew him as a midfielder, because that's another thing. But he's essentially right-sided. But there he is again, cracking it in with his left foot, wasn't it?
Well, Ross McCrory. What does Ross McCrory bring you? Awful first touch, generally, off either foot, off the chest, all the rest of it. But boy, does it give you intent.
Yeah,
and he gets you moving forward. And he has an aggression. He has a power. He scares people on a bit. He strikes me. He's like a 80s, 90s footballer. In the way that we used to have it, where they're not that great a footballer, but boy, do you notice them on the pitch. And in a team that we've got Williams with the intent, we've got McCrory with the intent. And I think even if you're playing him on the left-hand side, and he's got, up until the goal, he's got no left foot. They were giving him all the space to go outside on the left, and he was still cutting back on his right, which just demonstrates that he's not confident on his left at all. But in those situations, that's like the goal that he scored Norwich.
Recent, yeah.
Norwich
vital goals.
Coming in on that angle, and he doesn't think about it. He just does it, and that's a split second, and it's the type of thing that other players might have wanted a touch.
Yeah,
one touch, then really shot, and not had that touch, and he just steams through and hits it first. Gets a deflection, goes through Patterson's legs. Bit fortunate, but all about his intent.
Paul, you need goals coming from all over the pitch. I mean, Anis Mehmeti, top goal scorer at the moment with 12. I think Naki's now behind him with 11. Mehmeti gone right off the boil, hasn't he? But your thoughts on the goal and the decline of Mehmeti over this last 2 months when we've kicked on?
Yeah, it feels like the goals are starting to come from all over, doesn't it? I think we've had that in the last few weeks. Of what Liam Manning said about McCrory yesterday, I liked was he makes things happen. And it's not, as you say, it's not through a great amount of skill or a perfect touch, but it's just he's like a bulldozer, isn't he? He just charges through and charges at players and gets something to happen in front of him. Mehmeti's, I think he's a confidence player, isn't he? We know that. We've talked about that before. Liam Manning talked about that at the start of this season when he was playing Mehmeti, and he was, maybe not quite at the levels he was. Then he went for his golden purple period in and around Christmas, and it does feel like he doesn't feel like he knows what to do when he comes on as a sub sometimes. What's his role? What's he supposed to be doing? Does he get that? Does he get the space he maybe wants? And yeah, he's a great sub. He's a great sub to have, I think, to bring on as an option. But yeah, right now, we talked earlier, he's not, despite being our top scorer, he's certainly not what you call first choice.
He's not favouring at the moment. Conscious of the fact that Graham's got to leave us now. Graham, all I'd like to say is, I reckon we'll be talking again between now and the end of May. Depending on where we finish, we could either be having you in the semis, or it could even be in the final at Wembley. Your fans, what you read on social media, are confident you could beat us 11 against 11. I would feel more confident against you in a one-off game than over 2 legs, because to go to the Stadium of Light for the second leg, because we're going to be at home in the first leg, whatever happens, to go to the Stadium Light in the second leg, we'd need we would need a 2-goal advantage, because that's how I see it. But how do you see the season panning out for you guys? Because you've rested players, and to get them to come back in and get some form going, there's an argument that maybe you should be playing them and with that intensity. It's
a funny thing, isn't it? You rest the players, you get beat, you get criticised. You play the players that could win you the playoffs, they do the hamstring and you get criticised. It's no win situation. I think, and look, we've all been there, haven't we? When you see the opposition team say, we'll do them in the playoffs. But put yourselves in our shoes for like a minute, to the fans who find that quite arrogant. We should be confident. We've had a really good season. We're not on form at the moment, but like, how kind of negative do you have to feel if you go to a team you finished almost double points above and go, I don't know if we can do it? Like, you've got to be confident with it. Of course you do. The concern for me with Bristol City is our form in terms of like over the past few years against you has been rubbish. We beat you once. That was the first time, 3-2, Ross Stewart. Outside of that, I don't think we've got a result against you. And I think we played quite poorly quite a few times, which indicates that, maybe you're like the more of a bogey team than Coventry. But look, I think even if we had a really awful run to the end of the season, say we lost every game at the end of the season, I don't think we will. And you have a lack of momentum. Southampton lost 3 of the last 4 before last year's playoff. Momentum feels like it should be a thing. In our heads, we feel like it should be a thing. If you look at the past few years, momentum's kind of a myth in the playoffs. It's about who the hell turns up in those 3 games and does what they're meant to do. Am I confident someone can do that? Absolutely. Like, I feel like in Job, Dan Neil, Enzo Lefebvre, Wilson when he's on form, Mayenda, Trey Hume, Mepham, I feel we've got a really good team. And I feel really confident. I don't think we're like, do I think that we're unbeatable? No, I don't, because we would have won the league if that was the case. I think there's a reason we didn't get in the automatics. I think that's because we're not a parachute payment team. I don't think we can change the game as well as Burnley can, Sheffield United can, and Leeds can. And Sheffield United are struggling to get in the automatics. So there's a reason that we are struggling to get in the automatics. Add in the fact we have one of the youngest squads in the league. There's a naivety in certain games, but there's also a reason that we're so far ahead in the playoffs, and that's because we're good.
Yeah.
And I know that people don't like hearing that because people like a little bit more balance and a little bit more nuance. We're a good team. And I think we could beat anyone in the playoffs. I simultaneously think we could get beat off anyone in the playoffs. You don't know.
And that's the joy. That's the joy of the championship. Graham, great to have you on. Go off and catch your train. I'm sure we'll speak to you again, but if it's not us, then we hope it's you. All right. So all the best to you, Graham. Speak soon. All the best. Bye-bye. There we go. Great to have Graham.
Before you,
Dave, let's have you talking about. Let's look forward now to.
Just one thing on the goal, because I wanted to mention something on the goal in terms of the error and how we've changed, and in terms of Earthy and Bird and how we play as a press with you out wide. If you see the goal as an individual point, you would think, well, that's a poor goal to concede. But actually, Bellingham's touch is one of, I want to knock it long, but we're just giving it straight back, and we need a breather here. We need to keep hold of the ball. And you can see that poor goal, but actually it's not. It is relentless pressure forcing a mistake, because just before the goal, McCrory had one off the line that was actually well-drilled defending. It goes to the back post. The defender peels back in because they're in game-on mode. But you keep asking questions, you force mistakes. And that is where we were so good in the second half yesterday.
Yeah, and it gets back to that point that, against West Brom, which led to the winner, we were swarming round their box. I think that's a good word to use, is swarming with intent. And then when we blocked, we go back. But we were doing that a lot slower 5 or 6 months ago, and I think that's what's changed. Let's look forward to let's look at the other fixtures that the teams have got. It's 3 to go now. So let's look at the West Brom. You could argue that they're out of it now, but West Brom, Derby at home, Cardiff away, Luton at home. So they've got 3 teams that are battling at the opposite end of the table. Coventry, good win for them yesterday. They got Plymouth at home on Monday. Luton away, not easy. Borough at home. That's the pivotal game on the final day of the season. And then Borough, Sheffield Wednesday away, not easy. Norwich at home, they look like they're on the beach. Lost 5-3 at home at Portsmouth the other day. Vital game on the last day of the season. Paul, we could actually, if we get a result on Monday, we could clinch it, couldn't we?
We can if results go away on Monday, yes. Yeah. When you look at, I think that last game, especially Coventry-Middlesbrough, us being in 5th, we're in such a good position because of that game partly, is they both can't win, obviously. So if we're 2 points clear, 3 points clear of one, both from going into that game, we're there. So I think if we win on Monday, that's it. I think I can't see the other teams catching us. But Coventry are going to win, aren't they, at home to Plymouth? I think Plymouth's spirit will be broken by the late defeat yesterday, and they're probably down. But who's it Middlesbrough got? Sorry, apart from Coventry,
Middlesbrough have got Sheffield Wednesday away.
Yeah, it's not going to be not easy, but again, they're probably a mid-table team. But they're decent, aren't they? They're a decent enough side. Yeah. But ultimately, we don't really want to focus on them, do we? We want to go up on Monday and win.
Do you think Manning will make any changes to the starting lineup, Paul?
I think the fact that Wells played 95 minutes yesterday, yes, I would be surprised if he started after that. I think it might give Sinclair
the myth
run out. And possibly one or two in the back line, depending how players come out of it today, because it's a quick turnaround, isn't it? And we've got the squad. And I think we've all got our preferred first choices, but we have got a couple of options we can make to do it. Luton are probably more physical now than maybe Sunderland were yesterday. So again, Sinclair Armstrong suits that. Yeah, maybe
tight pitch at Kenilworth Road, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, our fans are going to be behind the goal in that tiny little shed, but their fans at that other end, that's quite, I would say it's an intimidating place, but it's going to be
tight, isn't it? Yeah,
it's going to be a fast, physical game, isn't it? I could see McGuane starting, because Joe and Knight, they've played at 100%. Dave,
possibly for Williams.
Yeah. Dave, what are your thoughts on Luton and the team selection?
First of all, in terms of the 3 games, it's 1 win, and barring an incredible set of results, you're in. Yeah. Even goal difference is kind of in our favour. In terms of the selection, yesterday was odd. Wells played the whole 90 minutes, I believe. Supposedly this is a 60-minute man that can't go because he can barely walk as a 34, 35-year-old man, and all of a sudden he's sharp playing 90 minutes. But I imagine that he won't start on Monday. It's a tough one because that team ultimately, the Earthy, Bird, Williams, etc., that's the team that's been playing so well. But maybe you might see a couple of changes. Maybe you might see Roberts brought in at left wing back. Maybe you might see McGuane come in for Williams just to freshen it up and make sure that players don't get injured, with an eye on the playoffs. Because if you want to be a big fish, sometimes you have to act like it. And at some point, we have to have an eye on, when we get there, we have to make sure our best team is fit and healthy and not simply just get over the line. Because if you don't believe now you're going to get over the line, essentially needing 1 win of 3, when do you?
That's right.
They've done it, and they've got to mix that balance, because all the other teams are going to have the same issues, but you don't want to play the same side as such on Monday. Key players get injured because we're already teetering. The Sykes injury is a huge injury, and ultimately we can't afford too many more. And the Easter weekend tends to make or break you. And that win yesterday has given us breathing space. And yes, Leeds is Leeds, but just win the game, make the rotation. That's what the squad is for.
I think by the time they play us, Leeds could well have the title. Somebody's corrected me quite right too, which does put a different complexion on it, that Coventry Plymouth is actually at home park. So that's last chance saloon for Plymouth at home against Coventry, and they've turned over some decent teams down there. It really is last chance for them. Neil, what were you going to say on that?
So one thing that struck me coming out of the game yesterday, we are 7 points above West Brom. So regardless of the results over the next 2 games, Luton's a difficult game because for me, it's almost a little bit like the QPR game last week, where the team just looked tired and all the rest of it. Coming off that short turnaround with the majority of that team, and as Manning said in his press conference, there's a few carrying niggles and stuff like that. It's a lot to ask to go into Luton with the same intensity that we had yesterday. So it's got a bit of a QPR type feel to it. But the worst that we can be after the Luton and then the Leeds game, where we have to acknowledge their greatness or whatever nonsense that.
And all the commentators who seem to love everybody bar us. It's always good to be under the radar.
The worst that we can be is 7th, because even if West Brom win both their games, they're still a point behind us. So then the 5th and 6th place team, if that so happened, would be Coventry and Middlesbrough, who both play each other. And like we've said, they both can't have 3 points. So it does feel like the destiny going into that last game is us just winning that last game against Preston, rather than us winning and hoping for other results to go our way, which is always a difficult sort of thing. You're there, you're winning, but you've got half an eye on the other results. Whereas I think because Coventry are playing Borough last game of the season, a win in that last game of the season, regardless of the two results against Luton and
given
Leeds.
our record against Preston, I don't want to go into that last game needing a win.
No, that's it.
No.
They're a bit of a bogey team.
Fair play to us for doing the Atio. Fair play to us for doing the Atio, because that is entirely the right decision to do, quite frankly.
And it's sold out.
What we are, if you look at the side at the moment with these games coming up, we are essentially saying that who is the backup to McCory in the right wing at the moment? You could argue Tanner, but we haven't got space. We're lacking in defenders. So it's you.
Well, I think it's Tanner.
I think how we
Sorry,
use
David,
you going
it has
forward.
to be Tanner. If McCrory's injured, it's Tanner.
But then who are your defenders?
You've got
This is where the issues are consistently coming.
Well, you got Vine.
Yeah, that's true. And then you've got Roberts.
Dicky Pring, and you got Roberts at left wing back. And dare I mention the word? You got Morrison. I know you don't want to play it.
But then, if you listen to that, essentially what you're saying is the solution going into playoffs is having your wing backs is Roberts and Tanner. That doesn't exactly strike fear into opposition players, and that's the issue that we have, is that the team is teetering. And it's going to have to be managed to get us over the line and still playing well. And they really deserve it pushing forward, because they have played so well in the last couple of months. It would be a real shame if injuries is the reason they fall short. But and I don't mean in terms of making the playoffs. I mean in terms of promotion.
I was at Senior Reds, and just wrap up on a couple of points, and we'll call it a day. I was at Senior Reds on Thursday, and Tom Rawcliffe was there, who's Chief Operating Officer and Finance Director of Bristol City Football Club. And I had the opportunity to do a Q&A with him in front of the people that were there. And I said, have you got your playing budget sorted out yet for next season? Because then I said, have you even contemplated, the alternative player? But, well, there's almost like 3 player budgets, right? What if we go up? Because we won't know that we're going up until the last week of May, which is barely 8 weeks before the season starts. So he did say, and this is an open forum, that they have to look at that possibility. Then the other 2 budgets are, what happens, right, if we don't go up? Because as a football club, we're running a 20 million annual run rate loss before player sales. So do we build on this season? Do we build on this season? Or that's one thing. So do we say, right, we give Jason Knight a contract that will keep him here. We buy out any potential threat. Or if somebody comes in, and it's interesting, the Sunderland guy said, 10 million quid for a 19-year-old, going to Brighton already. If that kid's worth 10 million, Jason Knight's worth 20 million. Yeah. If Antoine Semenyo goes to a Premier League club or goes to the Saudi Arabian League, we could be in store for, I'll say, 7 million for a Semenyo sell-on. how much of that money that the football club makes on player sales is used to strengthen the team, and how much does it go to mitigate losses? And I said to Tom, I said, from a board, I said, I congratulate you, because from the board's perspective of being in or around the playoffs at the business end of the season as being an objective, everybody would have said was great at the start of the season. It's already mission accomplished. But let me come to you first, Paul, on the future, because this is our biggest chance for 17 years. Of that, there is no doubt. But we've got a manager that is very ambitious. Yeah. We've got a chairman that has pumped in $350 million in infrastructure and losses. It is 300 million. Yeah, if you add it all up, Neil. And that was a figure that I said, and Tom didn't disagree with me on that. This is a vital 3 months coming up for City, Paul, isn't it? In every respect.
It is, yes. I think if you go up, it's a very different scenario, isn't it? Yeah, we know you've got the guaranteed income coming in. You can go and do what you need to do. I think there was a comment made at the fans forum back in November time, was it, that we'd go with the most of a squad. But you kind of got to say that, haven't you? You can't sit in the fans forum in November and say, oh yeah, we're going to replace all this lot, because they're not up to it. So, but we know we if we go up, we need 10 players. There's no doubt about that. I don't think there's any two ways about it. But yeah, I think the form we've had, the way we've played it, Liam Manning, I mean, there was some talk at the start of his tenure of being a yes man. He's far from it. He's very determined and very ambitious. And part of the reason, undoubtedly, we went over budget at the start of the season and had no money to spend in January, because he pushed for Twine, he pushed for McNally, took us over budget, and probably Earthy as well, to be honest, for that that extra option in the 10. So he's pushed for it. He will be very much on the radar of a Leicester and a Southampton, I think, if when they come down and they need a new manager, because he's done what he's done with us this year, and he's a young manager. So we've got to press on from this point. And I accept the point about losses. It's not our money. It's easy to say, but if you don't push on from this point and reinvest a significant amount of money, and I'm not talking 20 million, but whatever that number is, 6, 8, 10 million in contracts, in wages, we would have lost a great opportunity. But the Semenyo money is going to be very welcome, hopefully, if it comes in. I see Man United, and was it Man United, Tottenham and Liverpool I saw linked this morning by Sky Sports. So that's not like a rumour. That's more a Sky Sports standard sort of list of names. And there's obviously going to be a bit of an auction for his services. I don't know what our end amount will be, but it'd be a nice boost. But we've got to push on. It'd be interesting, because Steve Lansdown's made it pretty clear in the last 18 months he's not going to continue bankrolling big losses. He wants to head towards that sustainability word he's talked about for a long time. I don't know. Surely he can't fail to have been excited by the last 2 or 3 months and where that might lead if we do fall short ultimately in May. Yeah.
Dave, what do you think? I mean, that chairman says, and I don't think he was at the game yesterday, because I sit in front of the box a few rows down. I don't think he was there, but he's always said what the football club makes, the football club can take. But, that's the football club's losing 20 million. Now, we don't know what proportion of costs are allocated from Bristol Sport that contribute to that loss. And I was looking, somebody sent me the losses of Preston and Millwall. They're running at about 10 or 11 million. And I think Lansdown, we're never going to get to sustainability, but if he's prepared to fund 10 million a year of losses, then that's great. And we should be grateful for that. But what are your thoughts on what's in store over the next couple of months? Can we hang on to Manning? It was interesting. Tom Rawcliffe said that the 3 clubs that have been in the bottom 3 of the Prem all this season, the 3 clubs that went up, they spent £286 million on transfer fees last summer, and they haven't even competed majorly in the Premier League. So this is quite a pivotal moment for us, isn't it, over the next couple of months?
Oh, it's a massive moment. And if football's taught me one thing, it's don't just automatically assume that next season is going to be great and built on. When you look at the squad and look at the team, with the way that Manning has, people talk about him being in the running for manager of the season. And yet, if you go back 4 months, we were talking on this podcast about whether he should stay in a job or not. What a turnaround that is. And I have a question on that in a minute, so don't let me forget to ask it. But in terms of the squad, Bird is in the shop window. People can see what Bird is doing. He is a magician of a player. He will likely have someone come in for him. Knight is at the peak of his powers. Why wouldn't he want to test himself in the Premier League? Manning, don't just assume that this is going to be great. And as we have discovered, not every single transfer that you make is a hit. Sometimes they are misses, and it's not just easy to go out and replace a Knight type. It's not simple to replace a Bird. You got to find them, and everybody else is also looking. So in my mind, it's I come to next season when I come to next season, but promotion really, really matters now. Now, not to interrupt you, David, but I have a question for all of you, because somebody that you may all know on X is coming for quite a bit of abuse this week for changing opinions, and her name is Ellie Jones, because apparently her opinions at one point are not the same as now. So I thought I'd like to do something for all and just ask you, what is the thing that you've got most wrong this season? And I'll start with my 3, okay? Number 1, West Brom away was a must-win game. I was a little bit wrong there. Number 2, McCory cannot play as left wing back. I still think he's better on the right, but I was pretty wrong there. And finally, 63 points. 9 games ago, I predicted 63 points. I was a little bit wrong there. So wrong, in fact, that I wonder what I'm doing here. So, guys, where were you wrong this season?
Yeah, go on, Neil. You go first while I'm thinking of mine.
Yeah, give yourself a bit of time there. Where did I go on? Manning ball. I think the what we've done with the passing, with the hexagonals, or Dave Phelps has corrected me when I call them rectangles, and the way that we actually play with the wing backs. I did not see a way forward with the wing backs that we were actually going into games with. So Manning, to answer your question, Dave, Manning ball, playing with wing backs, and what we would do if Nahki Wells got injured, because he was injured for a few games and we seemed to win them. So
exactly. Paul,
all right.
Paul, what about you?
Well, funny enough, for me, it would probably be Nahki Wells, because I just thought he was done. And if you look back to the start of the season, obviously we had 2 new strikers in. I thought Wells would play a handful of minutes off the bench and might make a bit of an impact. But when I think probably back October time, we started to talk about, God, we're going to be reliant on Nahki Wells here for most of his season, because we could see Fally wasn't up to it, Sinclair was struggling, and yeah, there's no way we're going to reach the playoffs with just Nahki Wells up front. And that was, very much the view. I think on Manning, Ellie did come in from some stick, and I sort of saw both sides of that discussion. In December, coming away from West Brom, I was pretty despondent. I think anyone who was there was despondent, and we hadn't seemed to work out how to get the best out of our players regularly enough. Now, how that's happened is probably up for some debate. I think Manning has to take a lot of credit, but it's sort of just. It's not just happened, obviously. I think with Manning, he's a manager who takes some time. He's always said that. We used to take the mickey a little bit about, we need some time on the grass, and then we come back from an international break and lose the next game.
Yeah.
He's had a year on the grass now, and I think that's started to come through. He started to get the players and the team playing how he wants to play. They've learned it. He also I thought this coming away last night, he's talked about bravery a lot. And again, some fans take the mickey out of that. And what does that mean? Be more brave. He made a comment on BBC Radio this week about the Cardiff game when we sat in and hoped to win it rather than went out and played our football. And then they got their late equaliser at Cardiff back in February, whenever it was. And he said, since that game, we came back in the dressing room and we talked to the players about wanting to always be us, forget about the opposition. And I think that's a view most fans wouldn't have of Liam Manning. I think they feel he's a bit too aware and respectful of the opposition. He's a bit too defensive. He's a bit too safe. Whereas actually it sounds like that was maybe what he wanted from a team, and the team weren't quite doing what he wanted in terms of that bravery, in terms of continuing to play football, continuing to play it out from the back, whatever it might be. And it sort of struck me that maybe this is what he's been aiming for all along, and it's just taken 18 months to get to that point where it's really shown through.
Mm.
And
okay, no, look, I mean,
David, where were you wrong?
You've got to hold your hands up sometimes and admit that you were wrong. I mean, as podcast host, I say things, I flip-flop and what have you. I say things because it's to provoke debate. I mean, look at me with Andy Vyman a couple of seasons ago, and then he goes and scores all those goals. I mean, look, getting it wrong, Max O'Leary, we've slaughtered him. I've slaughtered him on here. You know, not a good goalkeeper. I've been critical of Liam Manning, but I did say at the pre-season, I've had one meeting with Liam Manning with the other podcast guys back in July, and Manning was in the room. And I have to say I was impressed. So that was sort of like after he'd been on board 8 months. And I said to Tom Rawcliffe, I said, Premier manager in waiting we've got here. Let's hope he can achieve it with us. And then, after the West Brom game or in some of the games, I think, God, I made a bit of a fool of myself saying that because he's not flexible. It's dull, boring football to watch. But he is Premier League manager in waiting in what he's achieved. I've slagged off Joe Williams, and who got his new contract and just a clogger, but he's come on and shown good skill. He seems when he can control his temper, what a good player he is. And with McGuane and Bird and Knight and Earthy, Scott Twine, I've slagged him off. He's only there for the free kicks. He's probably gonna. You can just see it now. Twine scores winner at Wembley to put City in the first Premier League for the first time in 45 years.
That's a perfect note to finish that
Don
one.
One has said, DP even slaughtered me today. So I thought he did something. I got that wrong. You've got to be able to get it wrong. Yeah, you've got to be able to get it wrong. Best comment for me today was that me and Neil being the Proclaimers double act. So if you're if you're listening to this on Spotify, that today's music will be 500 miles. I'll go and edit that. Bugger the copyright as we always do. But no, look, you're absolutely right to raise that point. Ellie's come here on the podcast a few times, and she always does talk a lot of sense. And as somebody pointed out, even the person that called her out was sort of doing it somewhat tongue in cheek. And that's what we all do. That's why we love football, because it's all about opinions, and we flip and we flop.
And just to say, by the way, it's not because I think that she was wrong. It was just to point out that it's like, hey, we all say stuff that sometimes we're right when we look back and sometimes we're not. And sometimes we're right at both the same time. But it's like, I feel like sometimes that maybe girls and women get it a bit easier when they say stuff because they're an easier target. And we're seen as not so much. And generally speaking, I get maybe it was a joke with her, but it didn't need to be in that way because she didn't take it as a joke and laughing. She took it in a completely different way. And sometimes if you are the joke, you kind of have to find it funny. And I don't think she particularly did in that moment. And I just thought today I'd have a bit of fun with it and say, well, hey, look, I've been a bit of a joke myself in a few of my things this season.
I suppose the biggest thing for me now, I've just had a couple of minutes to reflect on it, Dave. Your question, what have we got wrong? Yeah. It's the sense of belief inside Ashton Gate. And I think that kind of changed. For me, Borough was a pivotal game. And then I think the crowd there, the Section 82, there was a sense of belief there that something was building. And there was a sense of belief that they'd get it over the line. And there's been some games recently, quite a number of the games recently, where the crowd has carried the team. And the team has lifted on the back of the crowd. So I think it's almost like the crowd themselves, the belief within inside the people coming to that game. Even at 1-0 down yesterday at 55 minutes and they're down to 10 men, there wasn't groans. There wasn't, there wasn't this. There was a raising and there was a belief. And it's a belief that we haven't seen, I don't think, since the Johnson 07-08 season, really. And that 07-08 season, we didn't finish on a high. We were top two most of the season.
And we fell away.
And we fell away. Yeah. This season, you do not want to be playing us at home. No. None of those sides. Sheffield United won't like it. We should have beaten Sheffield United. Apart from that last 5 minutes where we self-imploded. No. Sunderland after yesterday won't like it. Coventry won't like it. Teams will not like coming to us. The thing is, as Dave's pointed out over two legs, our away form, four away wins all season. One away win, which is Millwall since November. 11 draws. The way we set up, the way we are away from home, we're talking chalk and cheese. And
that's interesting. And it's not impossible. The next three games, we could draw. And that would still be enough. Draw at Luton, put up a fight against Leeds, draw up there, and draw against Preston. Yeah, it's then 3 cup finals. And that away form, though, that away leg, is to some extent, if we can go to an away leg with a 2-goal advantage, then
I'll tell you what, though, Dave. I fancy us at Wembley. If we get to Wembley, there is a sense of belief this season that you do not want to play us. There will be. We have got in there, and the crowd is really behind this team, and you do not want to be playing Bristol City at Wembley. I would argue if we get to Wembley, I fancy us at Wembley against anybody in a one-off game at Wembley.
It looks like it's Leeds and Burnley for the top 2, because the only team in the playoff zone that I would fear in a one-off game would be Burnley. Even Leeds in a one-off game, I'd fancy us, because they have a habit of blowing up. But look, we've done over 420 people, sorry, have been watching this as we've been recording it live on Saturday morning. So thanks a lot for that. We'll be doing the Luton review at 6 o'clock on Monday. Are you around for that one? You might be. We'll talk about that later. We'll be doing that, and then obviously Leeds 8 o'clock kickoff following Monday. We'll be doing that one at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, and then Preston fortnight's time on the Saturday. It's a 12:30 kickoff. Remember, Preston at home, so we'll probably do that one at 6 o'clock on Saturday.
We're either going to be crying or.
Well, I don't think. No, I don't.
Really
well, it is what it is. But thanks to Graham. He said there's a story there for Bristol City this season being our season, built on a foundation of, look at Liam. What a year it's been for him, or what a 6 months it's been for him, because you can't imagine what he was going through in the autumn, and the way he's come out the other side. Let's hope it gets what he wants, and we get what we want. 45 years.
We are the Cinderella team in the playoffs. If we get to the playoffs, Sky Sports and the commentators, we will be the Cinderella team get up to the Premiership?
We are the Luke Littler of football. The Luke Littler of football. I'm telling you, they'll be all in on the right.
Paul, great to have you on. I'm sure we'll have you on at some stage during the playoff. We'd love to have you on there, because we've had a good session today. Thanks for everybody that's watched. Thanks for everybody that listened to it. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed doing it. But thanks everybody. All the best. Goodbye.